Coming up on your Tuesday morning drive. Tiger returns to the scene of his first PGA Tour start as an amateur. What positives can he carry over from his last start? And what are the potential stumbling blocks? We prep you for a big week ahead at Riviera. And with the Open heading back to St. Andrews in 2021, we relive the most historic moments at the iconic venue.
Oh, what ecstasy.
Yes! What a finish.
You don't want to miss this stroll down memory lane. Plus, 1989 Open champ Mark Calcavecchia joins the show live. He'll dish on his two-shot win and how he held off Bernhard Langer. And Dr. Ara Sapaya makes a house call this morning with info on the symptoms and risks of heart disease and how you can potentially save the life of someone you love. Today is Tuesday, February 13th, as Morning Drive starts now. Well, good morning, everyone. Glad that you are starting your Tuesday with us here in Studio AP. Lauren Thompson, joined by our PGA Tour winner and Robert Dameron and Cara Banks. Sports world is ignited this week with the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang. It is cold there. The action, though, keeping everything warm. You've been watching?
I was watching some last night. I thought it was great. I watched Miriam Lundby win the gold medal in the ski jump, and I cannot keep my eyes off of it because I'm always thinking, what would that feel like to be flying through the air? And then I also know I'd be so paralyzed with fear, I probably would never realize what it felt like. So I'll just leave it to them.
They like that adrenaline rush. That's what it's all about for them.
Speaking of big air, I mean, I've been watching a lot, but I stayed up to watch Chloe Kim take gold in the ladies halfpipe last night. Wow. I don't know if you missed it. She's a California girl whose parents actually moved there from South Korea before she was born, making these Olympic Games particularly apt. She had so much pre-Olympic hype around her, but she crushed it. Age 17, she scored 93.75 out of 100 in her first run. The gold medal was already assured before her third lap when she showed us this iconic pair of 1080s, which is kind of when you can completely twist 3 times up in the air above the pipe. We all know about Shaun White, but here's a girl who was definitely stamping herself as an all-time great already, still as a teenager.
Now, Shaun White, I'm a huge fan of his, and he loves golf too. Go figure. Rich Lerner got to spend some time with him. But wow, I'm talking about a 17-year-old from Colorado in Red Gerard. Did you guys hear about this? This is crazy. So he's playing in the Winter Olympic Games and had a really rough start. Actually slept through his morning alarm, apparently after a late night Netflix binge. A friend woke him up. His jacket was missing, so he borrowed a jacket, bolted out the door, still went on to win a gold medal, the first gold medal for the Americans in the 2018 Winter Games. This just fascinates me. He's clearly oozing talent.
I got to get you on some winter sport lingo. He's riding, not playing.
Right.
That's what they call
playing golf, it sneaks in.
Yeah, that's understandable. They're riders because they're riding these snowboards.
I just want to know if we can use the Netflix excuse for showing up late to morning drive. No, doesn't work.
Probably
It's out the window.
Well, several of our Golf Channel talent are out at the Winter Olympics, including our very own Damon Hack and Rich Lerner, who has been learning more about South Korean golf after 2 of the game's biggest stars were represented in their opening ceremony. So we will have that piece for you a little bit later on in the show with Rich Lerner. Stay tuned for that. But what are this morning's headlines, Elsie?
Well, of course, we do have to get the focus back to golf. We are Morning Drive here on Golf Channel. So happening now in the game, Tiger Woods, couple days away from his second start of 2018 and the Genesis Open, where he's going to make his 12th start in the event, but his first since 2006. In fact, the Genesis Open was where he made his PGA Tour debut back in 1992 as an amateur. Now, a top-notch field will be joining him this go-round at Riviera. So looking at the field, we've got Dustin Johnson, the world #1, the defending champion, got to the #1 position in the official world golf ranking here with the win last year. How about Jordan Spieth, his 6th appearance, only one top 10. Justin Thomas, the reigning PGA Tour Player of the Year, 4 appearances, no top 10s. Rory McIlroy, disappointing, yes, at Pebble Beach for himself and for the rest of the people who were vying for him, but a tie for 20 in 2016. Phil Mickelson, he won in 2008 and 2009, all there for the final stop in the PGA Tour's West Coast swing. But now to yesterday's breaking news. We covered it here on Morning Drive. The Open returning to a familiar spot come 2021 for the 150th edition. Now, the old course at St. Andrews, this will mark the 30th time that the venue has hosted golf's oldest championship, which dates back to 1873. So for more on today's top story, though, Tiger, another start this week on the PGA Tour. We get you back to Cara Banks.
All right, Laura, thank you. Well, yes, we've been speaking about it all week long, and we will continue to. Tiger Woods is making his first start in the Genesis Open since 2006, 2 weeks after he finished tied for 23rd at Torrey Pines. With that in mind, Robert, what was the biggest positive you took from his week in the Farmers Insurance Open?
Well, he ground out such a decent tournament, I guess, at tied for 23rd with his short game. And over the last couple years, 3 years, when he's been making his comebacks on and off through the back injuries, it's the short game, the chips, that when you walk past the TV, you stop and watch, because we used to know he was going to get it up and down. No point in even looking, if not chip it in. And then he went through the spell where it was so bad, and that was the big question mark to me. I never expected him to hit every fairway. I thought his irons might be a little rusty. He might be rusty, but his short game showed no rust, and his grinding showed no rust. And those two things are really kind of attached, being able to grind out a good score and your short game. But he pulled off some incredible chips. And the other thing, too, if you really have the chipping yips, which people think that he may or may not have, I kind of thought he did. I think that always lurks in there. It's the easy chips, very much like this one, that show it. The ones that you know you should get up and down, that you really kind of struggle with, and he didn't at all. He looked like he holed almost every easy shot. A lot of them should have gone in. So if that short game stays the way it is, you know, he's going to be in decent shape, and he can play anywhere.
Yeah, he was tied 21st in scrambling, and shots like this just prove it to you. But he was also incredible on the greens, wasn't he? Tied for 8th in overall putting. No 3 putts all week, and 36 for 36 in all attempts he had from 3 feet. So really, the entire area, as soon as he got close up to the green, was pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And on Poe greens, and I said it during the tournament, had the rest of the field played golf from where he played from, everyone had to play from his drives, he would have won the tournament by 6 shots.
Which brings me on to my next point, because if we compare the short game to the fact that he was tied 76th in driving accuracy after hitting only 17 of 56 fairways across all 4 days, then presumably that was the biggest negative.
Well, I'm amazed that someone else tied him and hit that few fairways. He was tied 76, not last. Yes, obviously that was the biggest problem, and it was both ways. He could have gone either way. There were pull hooks, a lot of it out. I'm certain it's a timing issue. He looked good over it. His setup looked good. He swung hard at the ball. So, you know, if you feel bad over it and you don't think you know where it's going to go and you're uncomfortable in your setup, you tend to steer it. He didn't steer any drives. He swung hard at them, which I think from the top, body outraces the club head, and he can't catch up. You see, even in real speed, you can see a little flip of the right hand and right shoulder, and that's trying to square that driver up. So another question mark in my mind with his driver is he's had a couple weeks at home to fix it. He knows he needs to fix it. He knows he drove it terribly. He's been relying on a coach and different coaches for so many years now, and now he doesn't. Does he know what to work on when he goes home? Does he have a simple thought when he goes home and goes to the range? Or does he pull out ideas from Butch, and then ideas from Sean Foley, and ideas from Hank Haney, and try different things? And, oh, that works on the range, and, you know, I just, on the range isn't going to amount to much. He needs to play tournaments, and that's where he's going to learn how to hit fairways in tournaments, because anyone can hit them on the driving range.
That's going to be the big test, because River's not an easy track if you're going wayward off the tee either. So to see if he has made those improvements in the last couple of weeks. His approach play wasn't incredibly dialed in either. He hit 42 of 72 greens, and that was a tie for 53rd in greens in regulation. So that is definitely the long part of his game that we're looking to see improvements in on Thursday.
His iron game, even when he's playing terribly, you know, a couple years back, his iron game was the one thing that really never varied. It was his driver that was really bad, his chipping. He didn't make the putts he was, but irons were always good, and the irons were a bit weak. But I think at Riviera, if he shows up with the same short game, improves his driving a little, he can contend. If he shows up with the same driver and his short game is not quite as sharp, he's going home Friday, no question about it.
He was inside the top 20 at one point on the Sunday at Torrey Pines. We'll see how he can translate that form to the Genesis Open this week. This is actually the second consecutive year that the Genesis Open is being run by the Tiger Woods Foundation, and the 14-time major champion will address the media today. So don't miss Tiger's news conference live right here on Golf Channel at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, with the news yesterday that the Open will return to St Andrews for its 150th anniversary in 2021, let's reflect on some iconic moments we've seen at the home of golf. It was the summer of 2000 when a 24-year-old Tiger Woods won his first claret jug and fourth major title, winning the Open at St Andrews by 8 strokes at a record 19 under par. And with the victory, he became the youngest ever to complete the career Grand Slam. 5 years later, when the game's oldest championship returned to the old course, it was Tiger who was triumphant again. He led wire to wire for his 10th major title. Well, let's show you some more memorable moments from one of the most famous courses in the world. We'll go all the way back to 1917. Jack Nicklaus on the way to winning his second of 3 claret jugs with what was a playoff over Doug Sanders.
Over Doug Sanders. Doug Sanders famously missed the short putt to force a playoff. That celebration was not well thought out, I think. Kind of just reactionary, and he goes, wait a minute, I shouldn't have thrown that putter that high.
It was an 18-hole playoff, by the way. That doesn't happen anymore. They have a 4-hole aggregate in the Open. Now, 1984, Seve Ballesteros, this iconic.
Tony Jacklin told me one time, he goes, Robert, I do not believe in magic, but that putt does not break that way. Seve willed that ball in the hole. That's the only way I can explain it.
That was a 2-shot win over Langer and Watson, and that is the iconic pose that lives on with the late Seve Ballesteros. 1990, after a collapse by Greg Norman on Saturday, Nick Faldo came through to win by 5 with an incredibly good round here at the Old Course.
And it set the scoring record there of 18 under par and just played beautifully in the pretty good weather that week.
That scoring record stood until Tiger bettered it actually in 2000, as we mentioned a moment ago. Now, 95, this was incredible. Constantino Rocca chunked his second shot at 18, so he really needed a miracle, otherwise John Daly was going to win. He had to hold this from the Valley of Sin to force a playoff.
You could only imagine what was going on in John Daly's mind. The chili dip, that's it. I've won the tournament, and then that happens, and he's got to go into a 4-hole playoff.
What a reaction.
Crazy.
John Daly would end up being the champion, but it was a moment that Rocca will never forget. Now, the Women's British Open was here in 2013. Stacey Lewis birdied her final 2 holes, this at the famous road hole, setting up a perfect approach.
The road hole is maybe the hardest second shot in golf. I can't think of one that's tougher, and that was done so well.
So she birdied 17, and this a long birdie attempt. Putter in the air, fist bump. That was her second career major as she posed on the famous Swilcan Bridge. And we've had a few farewells at the Old Course as well, Robert. Many people chosen to say goodbye to the game here, none other than Arnold Palmer.
Yeah, that gives me chills. And I know everyone has got their own picture, and when they're walking across the Swilcan Bridge, you have to stop and take a picture. But that was something special to him, I know, and this man too. I mean, if you're going to say goodbye, what a way to do it. And of course, Jack Nicklaus is not going to miss a putt on the last green.
It's emotional for all of them, and he blows kisses to the crowd. This was Nick Faldo in 2015. Actually, remarkably, the same Pringles sweater that he won the claret jug and fit him all these years later.
And it didn't have moth holes in it or anything. Very nice.
And then just the same year, actually, but a lot later in the day, Tom Watson on Friday evening, this was about 9 o'clock local time, is when he chose to say goodbye, and it didn't stop the crowds coming out to support him and react to what has been an incredible career for him, and is still indeed going. You've been there, I know. What was your experience the first time you got to go and play the Old Course?
I loved the course because I was into the history of the whole thing, but the thing that stood out to me the most, and the thing that I took away from it, is you're driving in the little road and you drive past the hotel on 17 on the road hole, and it's like you drove back 200 years in time. Everything's preserved. It's almost the way that old Tom Morris played there, and those kind of people. So that's what stood out the most. That's what I took away with me, just the preservation of the history. of St. Andrews.
Growing up in the United Kingdom, I've been lucky enough to visit St. Andrews on several occasions. No matter how many times you've been, there's just a magical aura about it. Because I think if you understand the game of golf, you know its meaning in the sport. And I was most recently there last summer, actually. We stayed at the Old Course Hotel for the Women's British Open that was taking place at nearby King's Barnes. Every morning to wake up to that view, to go running on the beach, to have breakfast overlooking the road hole, the 18th. It's just a truly special place in golf, and we'll be heading back there in 2021.
I've
so great
booked
news.
my ticket now.